Look at the weather.
It's beautiful here.
Non-stop rain.
Oh, man, it is a blazer out there.
It's cold and it's shivery.
It is cold.
Really coming down here.
I really enjoy your weather reports.
From the All Indiana Podcast Network, we're talking weather in a whole new way. From historical events to what's coming up, plus weather news, science, safety, fun facts, and more.
I like where this is going.
This is Weather Weekly. Weather Weekly with Wish TV Storm Track 8 meteorologist Marcus Bailey.
Welcome to Weather Weekly on episode number 11. Good to be with you here on this week of April 26th, 2021. I'm your host, meteorologist Marcus Bailey with Storm Track 8, joined often with also our meteorologist at Wish TV, Stephen Deanna. Hey, Stephen. How's it going, buddy?
Hey, Marcus, how's it going, buddy? It's going well. I'm loving it. The weather's getting ready to be really, really nice for this Tuesday. I hope you're taking good care, my man.
It's about time. This week has been this last couple of weeks, but the week prior to this was I wasn't a fan of it. Not a fan of it. I'm over winter. I've gotten the golf clubs out. I've already played a few times. And if you start throwing snow at me while I'm in golf mode, I'm not real thrilled about that.
I wouldn't be either.
No.
I mean, you're out there in a t-shirt and shorts,
right?
And then you have mid-40s
right.
Snow at you. It's like, come on, man. We've done hibernated enough during February. For crying out loud.
Right.
But, I mean, I'm trying to train for some track and field races this summer, and it's like, come on, man. It's like, get over it. Winter's been done and over with. We're in spring.
This is rough. Rough. Well, and again, that kind of takes us back to what's happened over the last week since the last time we talked on this podcast. Obviously, early in the week last week, pretty significant cold. And it wasn't just us. There were numerous cities across the really eastern half of the country that broke record cold temperatures and either set records for latest snow or were kind of in the top 5 realm of latest measurable snows on record. I believe, off the top of my head, it was the second latest measurable snow on record here in Indianapolis. And we did break a record cold temperature Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. I think we got down to 26. So that was rough.
Yeah.
That was rough.
That was rough indeed.
Well, and I saw a lot of people. I mean, it was here. The bad thing about all of that is we were so warm for the first 2 weeks of April that the growing season kind of got off to an early start. You started seeing things blooming. The grass had started turning green. I've already had to mow twice, and then all.
Same here,
I mean, literally, I'm not joking. I think I mowed that Sunday, and my grass is so green because we've had a decent amount of rainfall, not a lot, but enough to kind of green everything up.
Yes.
And let me tell you how weird it is to see just a very dark green grass, freshly cut, now have 2 inches of snow on the ground on top of it. So, it was rough.
It's like why? It's just
right. Yes.
At that point, it's
why?
Like, why is it happening?
Exactly. But there were.
Why us?
It is interesting though. It did come with its own host of problems because of a lot of the trees budding leaves. Now you've got extra weight on the trees. There was anywhere between 2 inches of snow officially in Indianapolis. I know my family up around the Muncie area was closer to 4 to 5 inches of snowfall. They had it pretty rough up in Hamilton County. There were a lot of tree branches knocked down because of the added weight of the heavy snow. And so there was a lot of power outages because of that. So, but it all melted.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
Yeah, by that afternoon, that's the funny thing is we only hit a high of 44 Tuesday afternoon.
Correct.
But that was warm enough, obviously, to melt all of the snow pretty much that came down the night prior. So Indiana weather's weird. Indiana weather's weird, man. It is. It really is. So
yeah, it is. It's
but
like
now,
it's like in a quick intrusion. It's like, yeah, we're gone now.
Yep.
And then now, yesterday we hit 76, and Marcus, we're returning to near record warmth for a Tuesday. It's like wow.
In 1 week. In 1 week, we're talking about record cold for one night, and a week later we could be navigating to a record high temperature for the date that we are recording, which is April 27th, a Tuesday here in central Indiana. So it's weird. I don't know what else to call it. It's weird, but it's good. It's good that we're finally kind of turning the corner, and it does look like we're maybe kind of finally getting down that stretch where we're going to be more consistently warm. So that's some good news. We got a busy podcast here today. Stephen and myself going to talk about a pretty significant date in history, and it's not really old history here. This is in recent memory. We are going to be recapping what's usually referred to as the April 27th, 2011 tornado outbreak, but it was actually a multi-day event, but the peak day was on this date, April 27th. It happened 10 years ago. Devastating tornadoes, one of the costliest outbreaks in the U.S. history. We're going to be talking about that next here on Weather Weekly. Welcome back to Weather Weekly. I'm meteorologist Marcus Bailey, joined by meteorologist Stephen Deanna here with Storm Track 8 Wish TV in Indianapolis. A lot of times we like to talk about kind of historical events here, and one in recent memory, and one that I often talk about, one that Stephen and I have talked about a lot, because I think it's a benchmark for severe weather, especially as of late. It's a very rare event, and we're coming up today, actually, as we are recording this. It's April 27th. It is the 10-year anniversary of what's called the 2011 super outbreak. And 2011 was an extraordinarily active year for severe weather, but this was kind of the day. And actually, you can probably say it was the days. It was about a 3 to 4 day event that did significant damage, specifically in the southeastern portions of the United States. So, Stephen, let's kind of dive down deep into it. And obviously, we can talk about some of the other days that surrounded it, basically from April 25th to April 28th. But the 27th was the day that I think everybody kind of remembers.
Yeah, April 27th, 2011 it's pretty much like you said, Marcus. You put it perfectly. Like, it's pretty much a modern day benchmark in severe weather history. The old benchmark is 1974. And of course, there's many comparisons that are made between these two outbreaks. They're pretty much in a league of their own for specific reasons. It's days out from this event. It was noted that this was looking like it was going to be pretty bad. But of course, when you're that far out in the game, you can't really say for sure it's like, oh, it's going to be this bad. But you still can't prepare for what's about to come. So like you said, Marcus, there was still some serious activity beforehand. I do want to know, too, Marcus, April had already been pretty active that year. You had the April 9th outbreak in Iowa. You had mid-April through the plains into Alabama through North Carolina. St. Louis on April 22nd. So you already had some activity, but I'll tell you what, the main show was yet to come, unfortunately, and it started, like you said, on April 25th. There was a pretty notable tornado in Arkansas, but that was nothing compared to what was to come.
It was. Here's just some of the kind of the hard notes on the. Now this is for all of the days here, okay, that I have written down. So this is between the 25th and the 28th, and the vast majority of these tornadoes happened on the 27th. Okay, but again, this is kind of the 4-day total. 360 confirmed tornadoes. That is a record for one continuous outbreak. So they're saying between the 25th and the 28th, that's considered a continuous outbreak of severe weather. Okay. The highest winds that were measured came from the Hackleburg Phil Campbell tornado. That was an EF5. That was on the 27th. That was 210 mile per hour winds. The big number, the unfortunate number with this, and it's the largest since the main event that you talked about, the benchmark back in the 70s, 324 casualties. only 24 of those were non-tornadic. So you're saying 300 people lost their lives due to the tornadoes, and the damage was estimated at $10.2 billion with a B. It is the costliest on record for a tornado outbreak to date. So those are just kind of the hard and fast numbers, and we can dive a little bit deeper on kind of how that day played out. But, that's a lot and again, a lot of that, as I said, Stephen, happened mainly on one day, but stretched over 4 days. But unfortunately, most of those, over 300, I know, lost their lives just around the Alabama alone due to the severe weather.
Yeah, Alabama was hit really hard on the 27th. Like 200 plus of the fatalities of the 300 were in Alabama, unfortunately. There were like 62 tornadoes. There were overall on April 27th, another hard-hitting fact, 216 in one day?
Right.
Are you kidding?
Right.
That's like, you think of like, this, of course, the 74 outbreak, there were 148 tornadoes in 24 hours. But you're talking 216, it's like, wow. Mm-hmm. The atmosphere was just ultra mad or something. It was like almost a once-in-a-lifetime combination of ingredients that came together for this event. And 316 of those 324 came on the 27th overall. So, right. Marcus, overall, this is how the 27th kind of began. And, of course, like you said, we're going to kind of quickly walk you through this. I think what some people forgot, there was a violent line of storms that morning.
Right.
We're talking like 3, 4 in the morning.
And there were fatalities with that in the morning, and a lot of people forget about that. I think I don't remember off the top of my head, but there was a handful of fatalities with the morning storms that came in pre-dawn hours in Alabama that morning.
Yes, I think 5 people had died, and there were 250,000 people without power. Mm-hmm. And I remember James Spann saying this with the TED Talk on talking about communication in a post-broadcast world. If you guys go look that up on YouTube, it's definitely worth a watch. I mean, very, very impressive video with him talking about it. That came only a couple weeks after the outbreak, and mind you, he's, of course, they're still reeling from that at that point. But it pretty much kind of set up a disastrous scenario a bit for the afternoon round because, of course, that afternoon was the main stage, unfortunately. But that line of storms was powerful that morning. You had tornadoes near Tuscaloosa, near Coleman, and we'll mention these cities briefly again here in a second. But, of course, you had a gap of inactivity. Mm-hmm. And then once you got to roughly 2, 3 o'clock Central Time, that's when the show began. And it all started in Coleman, Alabama. Now, I'm going to kind of reference James Spann a bit. Why? Because it's basically with James Spann, he's kind of one of the biggest influences in broadcast meteorology. And for those who are kind of wanting to get into this business, I absolutely highly recommend looking up some of his stuff because he basically he's that big influence in this business. He basically does everything right. And he's very well respected in how he handles this situation like this. So they're showing the Coleman tornado on camera. It was a highly visible multi-vortex tornado. Multi-vortex meaning there's more than one funnel surrounding basically the parent tornado. Right. And the Coleman tornado, of course, was violent. It was EF4. It was one of the first violent tornadoes of the day. That was just the beginning. It just got way worse from there. Then you're talking stuff like Smithville, Mississippi, Philadelphia, Mississippi. Those were both EF5s. I think Philadelphia was the first EF5 of the day, and then it just turned on from there, Marcus.
Right.
We were talking about, we were going to share a memory. So
sure. For
me, Marcus, overall, I don't quite recall this day because me being 13 at that time, my attention span was kind of less, more like less focused. I was just kind of focused on school and going home. Sure. For you, Marcus, I remember you telling me you were at work, I believe. I was. And you kind of quickly caught attention to it.
Well, so I was, at that time, I was the chief meteorologist at WMBD in Peoria, Illinois. I was probably in my, 2011 would have been maybe my second or third year as the chief at the CBS affiliate in Peoria, Illinois. We actually had a relatively quiet day. I think we had kind of maybe some garden variety showers for the afternoon. My news director at the time is a big weather nut, and his name's Rick Mull. Recently retired this last year. And he knew that I was a big nerd when it came to watching severe weather. A lot of the reason why, especially now as I've progressed through my career, I just love watching how people do severe weather in different markets. I like getting ideas, the things that maybe I have never thought of before. Stephen, I've shown you on my Google Chrome tab, I have basically every television station in the entire USA broken down by state, broken down by DMA. So it's easy for me to just find if there is a tornado warning in a specific market that I can just go straight to that station and see if they're live streaming. And I've been doing that for years. But James Spann has always been one of my favorites. And I've said it numerous times on this podcast, why. And you can just, any aspiring meteorologist that wants to be on television, I highly recommend watching him because I think he does it the right way. He knows his DMA. He knows more than just his DMA. He knows the entire state of Alabama like the back of his hand. He knows where there's a old gas station at the corner of this road and this road that's out in the middle of nowhere. He knows where the barbecue joints are at. And so my memory of that day is, while I still had to work, I remember bringing my own laptop into work and basically just having James on in the background. And it started, I think, probably early afternoon. And you mentioned really it kind of ramped up with that Coleman tornado when they got that live on air, which I was just extraordinary. You don't get that very often. You see it a lot in Oklahoma because they'll actually throw their helicopters out of the Oklahoma City market. They throw a lot of money into their severe weather coverage, obviously in Oklahoma. But you could probably make a case nowadays that the Birmingham market, the Montgomery market in Alabama, any of the markets in Mississippi are just as active, if not more active, than what we consider Tornado Alley in Oklahoma and Kansas and northern Texas. So to see that live on air was extraordinary. And I even mentioned to my news director, I'm like, this is such a powerful tool because it is so much more compelling to warn people that there's a tornado bearing down on their town, showing it live on television as opposed to a bunch of colors on a radar, essentially. And right. that was the first of several that they were able to catch with their tower cameras. I think what's extraordinary about it all is they didn't catch these via a GoPro in one of their station vehicles. They caught these on their positioned station cameras that, we have several around our area here at Wish TV. They caught that on several of their cameras during the day, and they were able to utilize those, I think, extremely well. But I'll tell you, Stephen, to wrap this up on my thoughts of kind of what I did that day was I ended up watching James, I think, and probably until about 1 or 2 a.m. when they finally signed off for the day. And I just thought I was exhausted just watching. I couldn't imagine how James Spann and Jason Simpson at that time, who was, the morning meteorologist at that ABC station where James is at, they did an exceptional job. Yes. But I could not imagine how exhausted they likely were after what was likely 10 hours of coverage straight, probably a little bit more than that. But then you mentioned, too, the morning coverage, which I completely missed. I didn't see any of that. But I know James was in really early that morning, and Jason Simpson was covering that as the morning met. There were fatalities that morning. There were numerous power outages as a result of a squall line, and there was actually as high as an EF3 rated tornado out of that initial line that morning. And there was a town. Let me see if I can find this here in my notes. There was actually a town, Stephen, that morning that was hit with the squall line in the morning. And yes, it's Cordova, Alabama. It was hit with an EF3, heavy damage in Cordova, and then later that afternoon, Cordova was hit by an EF4. So in the same day, they were hit by 2 major tornadoes. So it kind of just shows you the rarity of that day. You know, tornadoes in themselves are rare. Violent tornadoes of an EF3 strength or higher are extremely rare. And so we're talking about a town in one day, in less than 12 hours, that was hit once by an EF3 and then eventually by an EF4 is just unbelievable. And again, why today, or, you know, as we look back 10 years later, why that day was just, and Cordova probably didn't make as many headlines as, say, a Coleman did, or certainly a Tuscaloosa because of the sheer size. And you have a very large university in the University of Alabama there. Didn't probably get the news headlines that those kind of cities did, but obviously that's a significant note to take away on that date.
It is. A town getting hit twice like that, that's unreal. Like, that reminds me of Tanner, Alabama, from the original super outbreak. They were hit by 2 back-to-back F5s, and the second one actually pretty much almost followed the same path as its predecessor for about the first 20 miles, and they struck within about 30 minutes of each other. Yeah, that's just, I remember reading about that. Like that's just, it's more or less sad. I don't know what word to use for that when something like that happens. Right. But like what you said, going back to what you said about coverage overall, and Jason Simpson too. Yeah, he's also an unsung hero in this. He really. They both, him and James, really just hammered it out through the day. They pretty much like an Iron. It's pretty much like an Iron Man that day. It's like they're going at it all day. It's like, when does this end? But their perseverance really showed that day. Yeah. I mean, they're just heroes. I mean, it's simply put it that way. But like with coverage overall, showing a tornado, showing something in general, whether it's big hail or showing the wall cloud or whatnot, people are going to react to it better because they're actually seeing it. And I understand for us humans, it's common nature, common courtesy to want to go outside and see it. But when you have a tornado like that approaching at you at the speeds that they were traveling at that day, they were traveling like 50, 60 miles per hour. We're talking speeds like pretty much about the freeway, like almost a mile a minute pretty much, or at that distance overall per minute. It's so important to get to that safe place because that's precious seconds that you're taking away from saving your life. And we get it too. When we show you we show you some radar and stuff like that, we get it through social sciences. From what I've learned, it's basically you're looking at a bucket of spilled paint. We get that, but there's times where you have to listen to the message being conveyed through the air because sometimes we just can't simply show you things. Capturing tornadoes on the tower cams. So Coleman, like you said, was not the only one. Later on in the day, they were able to capture Tuscaloosa. That was a big one. That was incredibly impressive. Coleman is not a huge town. It's a very populated town, but this one went right through downtown Tuscaloosa. I mean, and the Coleman tornado did go through downtown Coleman as well. But, I mean, you're talking about not only a very large town with Tuscaloosa, but you're talking about a very large university that's also in session. Yes. They're in school, you know, that's past spring break and it's not quite summer break yet. You know, I remember seeing there was like tweets from Nick Saban, the head coach of the University of Alabama, saying, we're okay. We saw it. We were in our office over at Bryant-Denny Stadium. You know, that put kind of the realism, I think, in probably for a lot of people that don't follow this type of thing of how significant this event was in that particular tornado that went through, right through downtown Tuscaloosa. Exactly. You're looking at what's a violent tornado. Mm-hmm. It's coming. It's moving. That tornado in particular moved at about 60 miles per hour for much of its life. This thing's just getting bigger and bigger. And you're watching it come through a town. And the way that James and Jason were able to handle that, there's a video There's like a 15-second cut clip of that segment of it going through Tuscaloosa. I'm going to be honest with you, Marcus. It's just watching something like that, especially with like James. He grew up in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah.
Watching that, it's disheartening. It really hurts. I've also, there's another guy, Marcus, you might know him, Richard Scott.
Yes.
I didn't find out about this until recently. He was that tornado pretty much came right by their station, and he actually lost his home that day. He lost everything. That's like the ultimate form of like how does one get through something like that?
Right.
And that's where we're made to be stronger out of that. And like you said, it just goes to show, like hitting places like the University of Alabama, some people from that campus died.
Yep.
Some of the fatalities were Alabama students.
Mm-hmm.
These stories just show how unfortunate this event was. And that tornado went right all the way up to north of Birmingham. And they were tracking the tornado on their tower cam in Birmingham. It quit working on them. They had to go to a traffic cam. When they went to that traffic cam, Marcus, oh, man. It looked like a flat-out wall. I was looking at a wall.
Yep.
That was the tornado. It was huge. It was definitely probably at that point, probably about a mile wide. Max width was a mile and a half. However, how big it was at that point don't matter. This thing was just violent. That storm in particular would go on to produce another very violent tornado, which would rip through Shoal Creek Valley, Ohatchee. Ohatchee, Marcus, was just hit recently, 5 fatalities.
Right.
Which is crazy. I mean, Ohatchee was just recently hit a month ago, March 25th, by an EF3. But this tornado, there were so many violent storms, and like you said, we can go through all of them. Of course, we don't quite have the time to kind of go through every individual violent tornado. I do want to say this too, with going back to Hackleburg.
Yes.
72 fatalities from that tornado, deadliest tornado of the day. Deadliest individual tornado since Udall, Kansas, from 1955. Let me repeat that year, 1955.
Yep.
We weren't even anywhere with warnings back then. There was pretty much no warning. You had no warning of tornadoes back then. That was a nighttime. My friend simply put it a little while ago. That's your worst case scenario at night, pretty much.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
same thing can go with Greensburg, but that tornado was just, it also hit Tanner. Tanner's just, that's been unfortunate too.
Right.
Tanner, Alabama, which I just referenced from 74, they also got hit by Bill Campbell Hackleburg. So this tornado was also the longest tracked, 132.5 miles. Another impressive tornado, Marcus, to me, though, one that does not get discussed about, I think, was the one that touched down near Enterprise, Mississippi. It kind of stayed more in southeast Mississippi, southwest Indiana.
Hang on, Stephen. Before you go to that one, there was one other interesting stat that I wanted to add to the Hackleburg tornado that I have jotted down here. There was 2 EF5s that day. It is only the second day in history after April 3rd, 1974, that there were more than 2 EF5s reported. And I think there were more than actually, now that I think about it, more. But again, it goes to show how rare EF5s, or if you want to go with the older scale in the 70s, it was F5, the Fujita scale, now the enhanced Fujita scale. That there's been multiple F5s or EF5s. It hasn't happened. I mean, there's only one other time that happened, and that was back in 1974. So extremely rare. But go ahead, go back to what you were saying about the other impressive tornado.
Oh, no, thank you for mentioning that, Marcus, because that shows the scope of the rarity of 5.
Yep.
You get one about once a year. They don't come around often. There's a reason why there's only been 59 officially rated F5, EF5 tornadoes since the year 1950. It takes a rare set of conditions for an EF5 to happen. Like Indiana, there's only been 2 officially EF5s, F5s?
I think so.
74.
Yes. Right.
It's crazy.
Doesn't happen. Right.
This tornado near Enterprise I was just mentioning, I think it passed through near Uniontown, Alabama. One thing that was impressive about this tornado was its duration. Another thing that's rare, of course, is very long-lived tornadoes, especially ones that last over 2 hours. There were multiple tornadoes in the state that lasted over 2 hours. This one in particular lasted for almost three hours. It's like, what? And also, it's mind-boggling. But at this point, it was like, by the time that tornado dissipated, there was, I think this was one of the last violent tornadoes. This one was in northern Georgia, Ringgold, which was recently a couple strong tornadoes happened near there on Easter Sunday last year. Ringgold there was another EF4 that happened near Ringgold at like 8:30 at night. I've seen video of the tornado. It just looks kind of ugly with its dark blue appearance. But overall, and then also, too, the other EF5 happened near Sylvania, Adair. That same supercell produced another violent tornado, I believe, too. There was just so many different cells that day, Marcus, that were able to stay, like, strong, even if, like, just mixed in with other cells. It was so impressive. That's how impressive the atmosphere was, Marcus.
Right.
And usually, when you have storm interaction, usually some of those other storms die off. But these storms were able to maintain their violent string. That's incredibly rare to see that. That just goes to show how extremely rare events like this are, and what can we take away from this overall. Like, how we were able to really build off of what we had to learn from 74. We've come so far since then. That really brought about the advancement of Doppler radar, advanced warnings, and also too, Marcus, speaking of warning lead time, it was good. On April 27th, the warning lead time on average that I heard about was about 25 minutes, which is really, really good. I mean, that's a sufficient amount of time to find your safe place and get under there. But also, too, as James was talking about in that same TED Talk, they've been doing extensive social science studies to figure out why there were so many fatalities on April 27th. Of those cases, they had a small interior room in the lowest floor they could have gone to. What happened? Right. What happened? Like, that's just basically the simple question a lot of us are asking ourselves. What happened? Right. To all these people. And it's really sad. It really is. It is. You reflect back 10 years. Yeah. What's changed from 10 years ago? Sure. We've really, one major thing we've done in 10 years since then, we've cut down the false tornado warning ratio overall. I remember James Spann explaining this, the ratio, like false tornado warnings being issued. We've basically done a better job of issuing tornado warnings when they really need to be issued overall. And warning lead time, it's always better to have more lead time. Absolutely. Because you just never know. You never exactly know. And there's so much we can implement more in the future with like coverage and how to get the message clear. I think, in my opinion, though, we really have done so much better, even better, with saving lives. Fewer people lose their lives every year in tornadoes. Right. Which is incredible. Well, I think, and, as a weather community, and that's on-air meteorologists, that's government meteorologists, the whole enterprise, if you will, of the weather community and how we try to get out messages to the public. The big focal points have been, making sure people have plans. And that's been going on for years. They do tornado drills at school. We ask families to make a plan in their home, have a safety kit in that safe place in your home. But I think there's also been a very heavy push about how unsafe modular homes are, or site built homes. So if your home was built at a separate site to where it is, not built on that firm foundation and built there, how dangerous it is to be in those mobile homes. You stress it so much.
They're just not safe. They're not anchored properly. There's nowhere safe to be, even in a weak tornado. So I think that's another thing too, that, getting the warning out to those people that live in those communities that there needs to be a shelter somewhere nearby, or you need to find a place that's nearby, whether it be a supermarket or anywhere else but there. I think there's the push for making sure that you have multiple ways of getting warnings in your home, at your work. I think the advent of everyone almost in America having their own cell phone has helped with that matter, because now you have what are called WEA alerts. Almost every cell phone provider provides those, to where it will warn you if you are in a polygon based on GPS, based on your location. Now, you can turn those off, but I highly recommend you keep them on. A lot of people turn them off because they get maybe Amber alerts in the middle of the night, but you can separate those to take the Amber alerts off, but you want to keep the weather warnings off. So you can go into your phone setting and check that. But I think it's also the push of trying to get people out of the mentality of trying to hear an outdoor siren. That has been such a long kind of way of thinking, especially with an older generation. And you hear a lot of interviews post severe weather outbreaks saying, and it's people saying, we hear the old adage, it came without warning. We didn't hear the siren going off. But the thing is, sirens are an old World War II technology that was never intended to, initially be a warning for you during severe weather events. It was to warn you that there may be an attack coming back, in the 40s. So, people are so much more spread out now. Back in the 40s, people lived in cities. Now, people have, you still have a lot of people that live in cities, but you have a lot of people that live outside of these cities now, in suburbia, basically. And so what's always been recommended is get a NOAA weather radio. You can get a good, cheap NOAA weather radio that I guarantee you will wake you up in the middle of the night for about $20 at your local drugstore. And then the second way is your cell phone. You can rely on those WEA alerts, but you can also get numerous weather apps, both free and maybe for a small fee, that are going to warn you if there's a polygon in your location as well. And we recommend you get an app that is based off GPS location. If you travel for business, if you're out on the road for whatever, it's just better. It's better to know. That. But I think that's where we have taken some pretty great strides. Radar and forecasting continues to evolve. It continues to get better. I think it will continue to get better as well. But obviously, what it boils down to is how seriously these people take and heed warnings. And so it comes along the lines of compliance on severe weather. And also, I get it. When you have a lot of false alarms, it is so easy for you to say, it's never hit my house. It's not going to hit my house this time. But it only takes that one time, right? It only takes that one time, and that mentality changes. And then by then it could be too late. So, always take warnings seriously. It's not going to take a large part of your day to go down in the basement or the storm cellar or the lowest level of your house in the center, away from windows and doors. You may be down there for around a half an hour, and then if nothing happens, consider yourself blessed and move along your day. And I think that's kind of the mentality that I try to urge people to live by. I know we live in a very busy world, but 30 minutes out of your day that potentially could save your life, I think is worth it. So,
absolutely, I agree. Everything you said, you hit it on the head, Marcus. It's I think it's amazing how things have evolved since even 10 years ago, because things are definitely a lot different. it's incredible. We don't really realize it until we look back then with the standards we had then, with all the things we had. It's like wow, wow, a lot has changed.
Yes,
and it's only going to continue for the better. So as Marcus said, though, have a plan. And also, too, I think some words of encouragement, like, it's going to be okay, because there's some people that do have a legit fear of tornadoes.
Yes.
I remember watching an episode about it. There is a phobia of tornadoes.
Yes.
Actually, I never knew this until a few years ago. There are some people who probably might get froze up in the middle of the moment and are not sure what to do. So I think, like I was kind of thinking to myself in the future, it's like, I'm kind of encouraging the audience, listen, it's going to be all right. Even in the most violent of situations, if you do the right thing, you're going to be just fine.
Right. That's right.
And we can't like have our audience be like, well, have that negative mindset. I want it to be all as positive as possible, even in the darkest of a situation, like with Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, or whatnot. And two, looking to the future, like I'm sure there's some people wondering, when is the next super outbreak going to happen? Here's the thing. I think in this time, day and age, we should just focus on each of the next event that comes up at that time.
Right.
And, the super outbreak, another super outbreak, we can't obviously predict that, that basically in of itself is a once in about every 40-year event.
Right.
So, I mean, for me personally, I was just talking about this with my aunt yesterday, because I got family ties down in Brandenburg, Kentucky, and they got destroyed in 74. Mm-hmm. Brandenburg did. It's like, I'm like thinking it might happen one more time in my life when I'm much older. It's like, you just never know what's going to happen, but you want to be as best prepared as possible. That's how you're going to have the best outcome for not only yourself, but your family and friends. And getting that warning out to your friends too, family and friends too, it also helps as well. But yeah, just a lot to reflect, but we can take the amazing thing about this, I think the most important thing, Mark, is taking this and learning something from it overall. Right. What can we do to better just pretty much everything that's under the realm of weather overall?
Couple of final notes here before we wrap things up, Stephen. Just to recap that multi-day event, total of 56 severe weather watches were issued by the Storm Prediction Center over the 4 days in the outbreak area, which shifted obviously each and every day, highlighted by a high risk on April 27th down in the Gulf Coast states. It included 41 tornado watches, 10 of which were PDS, or particularly dangerous situations. That's incredible that they had 10 PDS watches, 15 severe thunderstorm watches. The SPC assigns numbers to each severe weather watch issued starting at the beginning of the year. And let's see, what did it say? The organization unsuccessfully used 2 of their allocated watch numbers during the outbreak, which ended up kind of screwing up some things. But that goes to show how many watches and warnings. And the one thing I do remember about the outbreak day, specifically the 27th, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, was, and I remember James Spann saying this and almost apologizing to viewers, saying, look, I know that there are new tornado warnings coming up, but he was in the middle of maybe coverage of what was happening in Coleman or what was happening in Tuscaloosa or eventually in Birmingham, in the northern suburbs there from that same tornado. And he's like, look, I know that we've got 5, 6, 7 tornado warnings going on right now. It was almost like, I mean, they were so far in the weeds, you couldn't keep up, which is extremely rare. But I think somebody also made a valid point. It's one of my college classmates, Morgan Berry. She's a meteorologist down at the Mobile, Alabama National Weather Service. And for those of you that have been following along, and Steve and I talked about this several podcasts ago, about some of the severe weather that's happened so far this season down in Alabama. They've had 2 high-risk days so far this year, right, Stephen? It's been 2 high-risk days.
Both occurred in March, and it was the first time of such occurrence since 1991.
Basically a week apart from each other, too. But she made a valid point. She made a valid point because obviously I'm sure the people there that live there and that have lived there through what happened 10 years ago are extremely traumatized when they see that not only there's a risk for high weather, but there's a high risk for severe weather. But in both of, I think, those high risks were validated by numerous tornadoes, highlighted by the second one that happened when southern suburbs of Birmingham were hit very, very hard. So they were validated, but it came nowhere near the damage, the destruction, the number of tornadoes that April 27th, 2011 did. And her point was, via her tweet, was it just goes to show how everything needed to come together to create that extraordinarily rare event. There was a lot of ingredients that went right on the past severe weather events this past year down in the Deep South, but there wasn't as much that came together like it did on that day 10 years ago on April 27th. So again, it just reiterates how rare that event really was. And for it to be a multi-day event was even more extraordinary in itself, as opposed to just being a one-day event. This spanned over 4 days. It shows how strong and robust that system was.
Exactly. It's powerful. It's powerful stuff. Again, this won't happen again probably for quite a long time. And the thing is, we would hope that this never happens again. It's unfortunate that every once in a long while the atmosphere is primed for something extraordinarily significant and down for the record books, unfortunately.
All right, my final thought here, Stephen, before we wrap things up here, again, just kind of recapping, and I want to correct myself as well. Total 360 tornadoes were confirmed by NOAA, and they actually had, believe it or not, this again shows how widespread this was. There was actually tornadoes reported in Canada. 21 states from Texas to New York and southern Canada. Obviously highlighted on April 27th, the most active day, a record 216 tornadoes from that day from midnight to midnight. And to correct myself from earlier, 4 of the tornadoes, 4 were rated EF5. And again, it had only happened one other time before in one day where we had multiple either F5 or EF5 ratings, which is the maximum rating on the enhanced Fujita scale. So pretty incredible stuff. You know what else too, Stephen, and you and I will be talking about this probably about a month from now. 2011 was an extremely active year. You mentioned the severe weather that they had in Alabama prior to this event, but do you remember what happened a month later?
Yeah, absolutely. It's especially what happened basically at the end of May.
Yes.
It got fairly active again, and Joplin happened.
That's right.
What happened next?
And that was a massive tornado that rocked Joplin. And so we're going to talk about that a month from now. The date was May 22nd of 2011. This all happened in the same year. So just absolutely incredible. But Stephen, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your thoughts with us on this historic day. And let's hope that we won't be talking about this type of severe weather for anybody anytime soon.
Hey, thank you, Marcus, for having me on. You're welcome. And I agree. I hope that we're not having a discussion like this about such a deadly event for hopefully the rest of our lives.
All right, Stephen, thank you very much. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thank you so much for joining us here on episode number 11. Some thoughts hopefully you can take away from this in the wake of severe weather. And again, we stress it all the time. Make sure you have a severe weather plan for your home, for your work, for your school, and ways to get warnings. Weather radio is best. Cell phone works well as well. 2 ways is always the recommended way to get warnings as well. We'll have another great episode coming up next week here on Weather Weekly. We hope you join us, and I hope you check out all of our great podcasts here on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
Discover more more. Discover more from Storm Track 8 Weather and Wish TV. Online at wishtv.com and when you follow Wish TV on Facebook. Plus, be sure to check out more great podcasts from the All Indiana Podcast Network now at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.